We have always been very invested in this country. It'll be really challenging for not just the US's interest in the region, but I think the continent in general, for us to kind of walk back this notion that we put a lot of investments and diplomatic interest into a certain place, and then it's within a day, it can just be undone that quickly. And there's a sense, obviously, within Washington that, if Russia is present, it's a very binary relationship. There cannot be a presence of the United States there when Russia's there. I think that relationship becomes quite binary. So I think that's also kind of the big concern. And it gives them another opportunity to step in, get paid for their services, and make themselves relevant again. Because after what happened a few weeks ago in Russia, obviously there's been a huge question mark about what is the relevance of the Wagner Group, who actually controls them, and what is their role in participating and or influencing global politics. It kind of was disrupted. I think if they were to step into the Niger scenario, it potentially could maybe lend them more relevance. Although at the same time, I'm not sure that's fully true, because we look at what they've been doing in Mali, and frankly, their role in Mali has, in lockstep with the Malian armed forces, only actually made things worse. If anything, what we've seen is that in areas that the Wagner Group and the FAMA, the Malian armed forces, have done what they call clearing operations, which is ostensibly a counterterrorism operation. We've seen multiple situations where the human rights violations that are committed on the ground by these two groups end up inadvertently turning into very ripe grounds for the jihadist groups to exploit that and make the case that these communities should align further with jihadist groups instead of the government. This could create a much larger vacuum of free movement for these armed groups to move further south into, and also have more area for them to freely stage, recuperate, recruit. One of the confirmed rumors that we do know is that General Chiani, the person who is currently in charge of the military junta right now, was rumored to be he was rumored to be getting fired. And there was a lot of suggestion at first that potentially this was his way of responding to the fact that he might have been getting fired. There's a lot of people talking about how this is Nigerians trying to throw off the yoke of their former colonial ties to France and trying to kick out other Westerners. There's also talk that Russia is behind this. We do not have any evidence that that's the case. What we are seeing, obviously, is that the civilian population, specifically in Niamey, the capital, is very loud right now about anti-French and anti-Western sentiment. There's obviously, we've seen the Russian flag circulating in some of the protests in the streets. But this is also something that we've seen civil society do anytime that there is a protest that takes place in the city, of which there are regular protests in Niamey. People are very politically vocal in that city. I believe that President Biden is set to travel to Africa for the first time, and I think it would be really important, given when he does go, if he could swing through Niger and reinforce the point that this is a special relationship and it needs to be preserved. The United States has invested a lot of money into developing our security partnership with Niger, including the construction of the airbase in Agadez, AB 201. This airbase, which is now officially Nigerian owned, is supposed to remain a friendly base for US and other Western partners to be able to restock, resupply, and fly elsewhere on the continent from. That was the goal of the construction of that base from the start. And if we don't have that base anymore, not only is that a wasted investment, because it was, if I believe, something like the most expensive Department of Defense funded activity in the world, that's not only a huge loss, but it also makes our ability to do work elsewhere on the continent that much more challenging. Obviously, one of the concerns about uranium being, a mineral that gets sent to a non-friendly country is huge, because uranium is used in nuclear power. But I should also mention that the national oil company in Niger, Sonidep, is, I think it's less than 50% owned by a Chinese oil company. So they're already there, is the first piece to this, and they're already taking advantage of what Niger has to offer. And also, Niger was on track to becoming one of the larger oil exporters in the region. The Benin Niger pipeline is set to actually be finalized this year. I believe they're 75% done with building it, and that was set to become the big pipeline for exporting oil to the Gulf of Guinea and selling it. So it's going to be huge for Niger. It could have been a game changer that would have allowed the country to potentially elevate in terms of its status. It's unclear how these situations, the security and certainly the coup, is going to impact that, because it looks like from the ECOWAS communique that was passed yesterday that any kind of financial activity or economic activity could be frozen for the time being.